listening to Wake Up and Read the Labels, your guide to eating simple and feeling good. If you want to eat clean and feel your best, guess what? You're in the right place. Each week, we talk about ingredients that may be holding you back from feeling your best. We also talk to some brands that are going against the grain and actually using real ingredients we can recognize. Plus, we're sharing stories with people who are just like you, who actually woke up and read the labels. Welcome to Wake Up and Read the Labels podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how you should go out to eat, because I know a lot of you out there don't have time to cook dinner. Maybe you want a night off from doing the dishes. So we got tips on how you can go out to eat and feel good. Also, discovering the connection of happiness and self-esteem and your kids being less likely to use alcohol and drugs if you sit around the dinner table with them, you guys, eat a meal together. Also, how wheat has changed, why wheat is not the same wheat we used to eat many years ago. Maybe you just don't know what to eat, right? Jen, okay, I really want to eat clean. I understand my food is making me feel terrible and get all these symptoms, but where do I start? What do I start eating now? And lastly, regenerative farming. You might be hearing that buzzword lately. We're going to dive into that. I am talking to Leah Delyte, who is a chef, educator, owner, and founder of 2 restaurants in Southern California. It's called Eat Marketplace. And then she also extends to Mount San Juanito College in Temecula Valley region. She teaches culinary classes with an emphasis on regenerative farming principles. Okay, do you want to go by Chef Lee?
Chef Leah. Leah's fine. You don't have to call me chef. We don't need the chef thing.
Okay. Okay, Leah, you are a chef, right? Is that kind of your defining factor?
No, my defining factor is that I'm a kick-ass female doing a lot of good on our planet to motivate change and to take the conversation around food to a completely new level. And I just happen to be a chef. And through the lens of that, it opens a lot of doors.
Okay, I love that. So tell me exactly how you are kicking ass and taking names at the same time and trying to make a difference with food and people.
Well, it's the short end of it is for the past 22, I had a daughter, I had a little girl, and I was in the film industry, and I made a decision that that's not how I wanted to raise her. And there's a whole story to that. So I segued back into food. I've been in food really my whole life. My grandfather was a chef. My father was an artisan butcher before he was an engineer. There's just a lot to it. And when I had G, that was a defining moment for me. I wanted to make sure that she was eating well. I saw what was in schools because I had worked with Slow Food USA and I saw what Alice Waters was doing with food. So I was acutely aware of what was happening in schools. And I just didn't want Gabrielle to be raised like that. I wanted to give her a fighting chance. And when I say a fighting chance, our immunity and our gut health is so important. And knowing that, I just I'm going to get into food. Everyone's been trying to push me into food my whole life anyway, so I might as well do it now. And that was when I started doing garden programs myself in Southern California in Temecula, 24 to 26 school garden programs launched with a $5,000 grant from then Governor Schwarzenegger and his awesome wife, Maria Shriver. And that was kind of just the moment for me where I really woke up around food.
Are you wanting to eat better, but this clean eating thing's just a bit overwhelming? Maybe you just don't know what to cook, or you don't know how to find the clean product swaps at the grocery store. Well, I want to make this simple for you. You can get clean swaps and an anti-inflammatory recipe delivered to your inbox every Saturday by going to thelabelletter.com. Okay, so you woke up. What about the food did you notice? Right? I heard you mention that you started realizing food and gut. Like some people, there's a lot of chefs out there. There's a lot of restaurant owners out there. There's a lot of people doing programs for food out there, but they just think, food is food. What exactly did you figure out about food?
So having sick people in my family, and I had an aunt back east who I got a lot of my Julia Child sensibility of cooking from. Just an exquisite cook and such an amazing freaking human. And her husband at the time had horrible cancer, and she started the link. And I was then producing at MTV, and we were doing a campaign around mental health. And we didn't have Google, we didn't have everything then. So I started to really study, well, what's going on with these teenagers that I had my problems as a teenager, but this whole class of kids at this generation, and this was in 98 that we did this campaign called Change Your Mind. And I started to dig into food because to me, there had to be another link. Every kid we talked to was on some kind of medication. And, the food, we were having no conversations like we're having now. Yeah, and about food or our food system or what's whacked or what's out of balance. So I dug in and started talking to farmers, had no idea that you should ever talk to a farmer. And I started to talk to health professionals who had no idea that there was a link between nutrition and mental health. And I found that a little alarming, but it took about a year for me to kind of get an idea that there's this link. And that's really what opened my eyes. And this is before I had Gabrielle, so 98, 99. And I started to understand that, organic food, well, isn't all food organic? So it took a while, studying and understanding and what the fuck is happening in our food world? And that's when I found slow food. Now, when I found slow food and Carlos Petrini and everything he was doing, and then Alice Waters, it was just this whole spiral for me. And I clearly understood that there was a definitive link between our health and our food system, and that our food system, something in our food system was wrong. I've always been a champion for others. I've always had this I'm Wonder Woman complex since I was little. Kids were fighting in the schoolyard. I was the one who just kind of showed up hey, that's not cool. Why are you picking on this person? So now to me, there's this link of, no, why are you picking on all these people who just don't know enough about food? How dare you? So that's my complex, and I'm stuck with it, and I love it. And I just, I don't feel like we can move fast enough right now. So that's kind of where it all came from.
Okay. So I have a lot of listeners out there where, it's probably, I'd say 75 know the distinction between good food and not good food. And also that 75% are very, very confident on the connection between food and health. But I would say there's 25% out there that's not entirely convinced that food and health have a connection, right? They're I could have a little bit of additives here. I can have a little bit of that ultra processed, here. A bite of this isn't going to hurt. What do you have to say to those people? How do you, not that they're wrong, but how do you convince them otherwise that listen, what you're putting in your body has direct link on your overall well-being?
Absolutely. So just like a car that we drive, we put good gasoline in it so it can optimize that motor, and we don't have to spend a ton of money in maintenance, right? So it starts there. And it's just like our soil. When you're growing plants, you see your plants thrive or they die, right? So then you figure out how to take care of them. Our food originates in the soil. Our dirt is, the soil has to be healthy for plants to grow and be nutrient dense to then feed us. So if we spray that soil, if we douse it in chemicals, then those plants can't grow. Or if they do grow, they're growing in a way that links directly back to our human body. And maybe that isn't a way there's an easier way to do that. There's a more elementary way to actually have that conversation. But that's really where it starts. So in a friendly way, if we can take people who don't understand as much or aren't as convinced, that it really starts with healthy soil, just like it starts with a healthy, good, clean gas, is how I would direct them. And I'm glad you asked that, because I have to come off of my scientific brain to then have that conversation, because I never want to beat anybody up or tell them they're wrong or shame them because they don't know and they're not convinced. Well, I think that there's a gentle way of convincing people. And, I had a mother come to me in 2010, and she was raising money for kids with cancer, and they were at Rady's Hospital in San Diego. And I had enough research at the time to really understand that sugar, processed foods, right, inflammation, everything that happens in cancer, that's not cancer's friend. So she asked me if I would create donuts for these kids. And I did enough research, spoke to enough doctors where I'm like, no, I can't use these ingredients. So I came up with a donut that's grain-free, sugar-free, gluten-free for these children. And we noticed a complete difference in the kids and in their health. I think that's the best story to relate, right? Because we all relate to children, especially sick children. And I mean, if you can give someone a donut, what an amazing treat to give a kid, right? That has cancer, but it's really clean for them. And then they react completely differently. I think that could be a great way to have that conversation.
Okay, so donuts and treats. Everyone's pretty much, I would say, addicted to sweets, number one. I notice whenever I put content out there, like if you put anything with sugar, anything that's dessert related, it gets 5 times more engagement on it. And so, I mean, that's why you see protein out there, right? That is, I don't know, snickerdoodle flavored protein. And you got these protein bars that are like chocolate chip cookies. Like, so people cannot eliminate that. They just can't go from, I eat all these horrible things to, okay, now I'm going to eat lettuce and vegetables, the most clean way to be, right? So the good news is that you're saying that you're creating a donut that's grain-free, gluten-free, and sugar-free. But for listeners, why should they stay away from grains? Why should they stay away from gluten? And why should they stay away from refined sugar? I guess I want to know your reasoning for choosing your ingredients, and what are your ingredients?
Well, I vote with my dollars. Everything we do, I'm very conscientious as someone who gets to spend money for a business in our food industry, that my purchases matter. I would rather support companies that are doing it well, that are ethically good, that are paying their employees a really awesome wage. And I want to know that they care. So it starts there. And with that comes better ingredients. So if I'm going to feed you something, I want to know, as a chef, I have an obligation to what I put on your plate. I have an obligation to you. There's a transaction here. And I believe that transaction has a lot to do with your health. So as someone who cares, I want to make sure that you're not going to get inflammation, you're not going to get sick, that anything I feed you is going to improve your gut biome. So that starts with something as simple as a donut, damn it. A donut can be better for you, and it's just about the ingredients that you're putting in there. And we could totally go down the rabbit hole to all the ingredients and when wheat started to change in this country during World War II and how we get inflammation. Well, there you go. And then mycotoxins and auxins and all the crap that inflames our bodies.
Yes. So how and why has wheat changed? Because even they say Jesus ate bread, right? And you should gather around the table and eat bread. But like our bread, I tell people, when you sit down at a restaurant or, you're at home, you want to eat the whole darn loaf of bread. And then you feel so bloated that you need to unbutton your pants, you need to take a nap, and then you're hungry for another snack an hour later. Like, is the wheat flour that's used today here in America the same as it was 30 years ago?
No. Well, barely, right? Well, when was 30 years ago? I mean, we're talking
1990.
Yeah, 94? No, it's not. It kind of is, because it started in, and I'm not a chemist, and nor am I a doctor, so I would never put that out there. But I'm very knowledgeable that our wheat change, we spliced that seed because the American government wanted to grow wheat faster and wanted to have more control with our farmers in this country. So to grow wheat faster, there's a lot you can do to, when you go down to a seed level, and you can change the nucleus of this and how this grain can grow. So our wheat became much different in this country, and I can't give you an exact date, but after World War II. So if we're going to mess around with what God gave us, if you're going to take a seed and completely, splice it and change it, and then if you also take a look at all the chemicals that this is growing in, and a lot of these seeds right now, as of the late 80s, are coming out of labs, right? Because we have genetically modified organisms, and there's a lot of, stay with me, large food conglomerates that need to make money faster and more efficiently. So it behooves all of them and cheaper to take the product and change it. So I don't know about all of you, but I don't want to be that guinea pig with our food system. So no, my grandmother ate bread all the time. She never had a problem. I think my parents even did, but they were born in the 30s. But our wheat in this country has drastically changed, and I'm sure when anyone travels to Europe, they see that. You don't feel the same way, when you're eating grains. So I personally stay the hell away from, all wheat in this country, unfortunately, unless I know exactly who's growing it. There's a place in California called Griston Toll. They grow their own grain. They're ancient seeds, and then they have all control, and they take it and they break it down and they mill it and they put it into flour. I mean, if you can go to that extent and find that, awesome. But I just know the bread that's in our grocery stores right now, even some organic breads, I don't go anywhere near.
Mm-hmm. Did you know, a lot of listeners may not know this, but there is not a GMO wheat. It does not exist. So if you're looking in the grocery aisle and you're finding, your tortillas, or you're finding your pasta made with wheat flour, your bread made with wheat flour, and it says non-GMO, it doesn't even apply, meaning that brand is making you think it's a little healthier, and they're going to get you to pay more. The issue with wheat is that they are actually processing it so quickly that it doesn't, or I guess it's having enzymes in there that we can't digest all the way. A lot of time it is bleached, it is refined. So they literally remove all the fiber and all the nutrients, and they put synthetic vitamins in there that, 60% of people can't even metabolize this artificial or synthetic form of folic acid. And then the other thing is that wheat flour is often high glycemic. They're putting sugars in there to make it taste good. And so you're essentially eating dead food that you can't metabolize, that's promoting inflammation, and that's spiking your blood sugar, that's making you hungry and tired. So
it's to keep you addicted.
Oh, for sure. Yes. But when you go to Europe, what they're doing is they are processing wheat how it should be processed. First of all, they're not using pesticides. That is a big thing with our wheat. So it's not that it's GMO, but it's that they're spraying glyphosate, which is a pesticide that has adverse health effects. And so people are getting that. It's changing your gut microbiome. It's making the bad bugs live and not the good ones. And there's things in there making your food more addictive. So I think that's the biggest hang up on wheat flour.
Have you in any of your research, noticed that the GMO crossover are, from farms to farms? I've read a little bit about that's starting to happen, but yes, I concur with you. Absolutely. Wheat itself is not. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mean basically if you got organic guy down the road and you got not organic guy, the not organic is getting the stuff sprayed on him from down the street?
It totally is. And that's what's happening in Mexico. And we don't have to go there, but you're losing that corn culture, and all of that is a GMO because they're crop dust.
Right. Okay. So let's start providing some solutions.
Yes.
I have some solutions, but I'm curious about yours. How can someone know, where to find the right food, how to find the right food? What is the right food?
That's a big question. It's a big suitcase to unpack. But I'm going to go right to what the name of your show is, right? Read the label. And it's the first thing that I tell all of my guests that come in to eat, and a lot of the students that are in my culinary classes, is unfortunately now we're faced with really having to read the label and understand ingredients. And if there's more than 4 or 5 ingredients, don't buy it. And if it's in a box, I don't care if it says organic and it's ready to go meal, don't buy it. That's where you start.
So you're saying if it says organic and it's in a box, don't buy it. Is that correct?
Yeah, because it's still processed food. There's a lot that's labeled organic that's not necessarily good for us. And that's the really crappy part right now. It's beyond even reading the label. It's understanding that this beautiful word, right, that God gave us, organic, natural. We can't even trust that. So so you mean like, hey, there's organic candy out there. There's organic cookies, right? There's organic things. Is that what you're kind of saying? Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm in agreement with you 100%. And I tell people basically if we really go back to what food should be, because we've lost the connection. People don't know where the farmers are. People don't even know what food is anymore, right? It's a big problem. However, the cleanest way is to eat farm delivered meats and fish and vegetables and fruit, all organic, clean it properly, right? That's
go to your farmer's market.
Yeah. But here's the issue, Leah. It's hard. That's not attainable for most of America, right? Kids are eating 70% of their diet every day is ultra processed food. So where Wake Up and Read the Labels comes in, I tell people, is basically we're trying to get you to continue doing what you're doing, but make it clean. So if your kid has to have a sucker, they have to have a brownie, they have to have a sandwich. You know what I mean? If we could just get people to understand, like,
baby steps.
Yep. Here's the food companies that are using real ingredients, no refined sugars, no preservatives, the good flours that keep your blood. Like, that's when people see improvements. I've worked with over 10,000 people, helping them through my courses, through my stuff, and they've lowered blood pressure. They've gotten off of medication. They have, gotten rid of depression, headaches, you name it, cholesterol, cancer numbers in their blood going down. So getting rid of inflammation is going to help people. And I want everyone listening I don't want them to feel failed in that they can't, just eat fruits and vegetables and meat and fish. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great approach. Yeah.
Yeah. But I say that's what you want to work towards, right? Because a lot of people ask me, well, Jen, what do you eat? And I'm like, listen, I'm not where you are. I've been doing this for 10 years, but I'm trying to meet people with being confused over the labels and where do they start? I like to give them a starting point. So what are you doing in your day? I heard you say, by the way, you have a garden program, do you still do that?
I do not. Well, I do and I don't.
Do you have a garden?
I do. I could take you out there and show you my 2 little beds. Yeah.
What are you growing?
I'm growing, tomatoes are out, but I have chilies back there. I have some fennel, celery, and I have all my herbs. Nice. And I've just put a little bit of lettuce in. Yeah. Okay. So that's something I can grab every day. But just real quick, part of what you were just saying is important, because when we first started Slow Food, we were working with inner city schools and families. And one of the things we did, we had to have the conversation. And I'm glad you brought me back to my roots on that. And our conversation around, well, we just don't know what to eat is, okay, well, even if it isn't organic, we'd really love to see you buy some produce. So if you're going to Food for Less, you're going to Sam's Club, you can still buy produce. And here are a few really wonderful things you can clean your food in. You can use vinegar. You can also use a little bit of peroxide, like a capful of peroxide to a sink of clean water. And you can get a lot of the pesticides off. But we want to see you start there. We want to see you give the kids some Jiffy peanut butter and a carrot or some celery, right? And that is a really great, gentle place to start. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any tips for somebody that might want to start a garden? i.e. me. My husband has one, and every day I'm like, oh, bless your heart.
Yeah. Well, this is hysterical because I don't have the green thumb. I just don't. And you're talking to someone who spent a decade in school gardens working with kids. And I know Greg Pennyroyal is one of the top soil scientists, in the States. And I am gleaming so much valuable information about soil and what we put in it and how important it is. And I still have a hard time growing some food. But I will tell you that it starts with your soil. It starts with your fertilizer, what you're buying. If you're going to do any kind of home garden, man, get some really good dirt. Please make sure it's organic. There's not any crap in it.
Yeah.
That you got to start there.
Okay. Okay. So let's dive into regenerative agriculture then, because I know it's a buzzword and we're kind of talking about gardening, all that. And you're starting to see, eggs. Yep. You're starting to see eggs made with regenerative eggs or regenerative meats. What does that mean exactly?
Well, when we're talking about regenerative or biodynamic or organic, they're all different. Regenerative really just stands for regenerating the soil. And that's still not something that's clearly defined by the USDA right now, or the FDA is not really acknowledging it fully. But my good friend Paul Greaves, who owns Pasture Bird and Primal Pastures, when we talk about regenerating, what we're talking about is that soil is clean and we're constantly regenerating it by having animal rotation on that property. And, that means if you have your chickens out there and chickens are doing their business, they're eating all their little, bug family proteins, and then they're pooping in the soil. And then you have your pigs come through and your pigs clean all of that up, right? And then you've got your farmer that comes and puts in their row crops in that area because that soil is so nutrient dense. So that's regenerative farming. It's different than biodynamic. Biodynamic, which we have so many farmers in Europe doing, really has to do with our moon cycling and a lot of other things. And it's so incredibly beautiful and organic and natural. So there is a difference between it, but regen farming is critical. It's really something we've been doing since the beginning of time. If you want to crack open the Bible and start, reading, the First Testament, it talks about how we treat the soil and what we should be doing. So we've had a guide since day one, and regen is exactly that. Okay.
So people are buying that. They're cooking. What should people be doing with reducing food waste?
Oh my goodness, there's no reason to have a great deal of food waste. So in my kitchen, in our commercial kitchen, we compost out all of our bits and pieces back to farmers to feed chickens or pigs. So that's number one. And if you can't do that, I understand not everyone can do that. But there's not a lot of reason to have waste because you can upcycle and recycle food into stocks, into shepherd's pie, into casseroles, into soups, into breads. And it's kind of endless. And I can give you so many examples. Like when you have a zucchini, like we think we have to take off that cord, right? It's really an umbilical cord back to the plant. Well, it's so beautiful and it's so edible. You can just barely slice that little top off that's hardened and chop that up, and you can put that right into a saute. That you can eat that, but yet we think we should waste that. Beets, when you get beets, the greens on the top, you can saute those as well, or you can chop them up really fine, saute them, put them in a soup. It's your parsley and your cilantro. Those stems are so full of nutrients. Like just chop them up really fine, throw them in a salad. Again, there's not a lot of reason to waste food. It's just a matter of how we treat it. I'm a big fan of find one day to prep, bring everything in, and allow yourself that time, put in some music, put on a comedy show, have someone in your family or a friend there, or have a glass of wine, but make it something convivial that gives us joy, right? And then you can break down all of your food. And when we're doing that and we're cooking in that way, we don't waste as much because we're not in such a rush all the time, right? And then you do have your food for the whole week. And when you are in a rush, you're just quickly pulling something out. So yeah, we waste so much food in this country. Grocery stores waste so much food. We're almost trained to waste food. And even with an apple going bad, you can break that down and turn it into apple butter, stick it in the freezer if you don't have time. There's so many ways to not have food waste, because I don't think any of us can afford to waste food right now. Food is terribly expensive.
Yeah. And you're essentially throwing away good nutrition and nutrition and vitamins. So you said, I heard you say, find joy in, prepping your meals, turn on music, make it something enjoyable, which brings me to, I think we can both agree that everybody's just living life such in a rush, such convenience. I know I spend my summers in California, and you guys have it a little bit more right than what we have it here in the South.
Where are you?
But I'm in New Orleans. So people are just in their car, driving place to place, air conditioner to air conditioner. Like there's zero walking, zero biking, little outdoor life, unless you purposely go seek it out. It's not in your everyday routine. And so with that being said, shouldn't there be an art of gathering around the table every day with your loved ones, with your kids, and finding meaning in essentially breaking bread together, clean bread, of course?
I love that, the end part. Yes, absolutely. I grew up that way. We always sat down for meals, and as much that can happen in families as you're growing up in disagreements, or, this happened or that happened, or my parents weren't here or there. We always sat down for a meal. We never ate our food on the run, from a drive-through. And if we did get to go to Dairy Queen in the 70s, that was such an incredible treat once a month. So gathering is important. And I think that we all really, truly know this, but it's easy to get disconnected. My God, it's easy to get disconnected these days. But if you can make that one important thing with your family, where you are sitting down for a meal, it changes everything. When you have joy, all these, what are they called, Jen? All of what goes off, all of these, yes, all of your endorphins, everything gets lit up, and it's no different than talking to a plant. Oh my gosh, you talk to a plant and there's been so much research done on that. It's the same thing with a human. Gather often. That conviviality is so important. Being with each other and having conversation and creating that joy wards off disease, y'all. It just does. And it's a proven factor in our children, just what it does to stabilize them.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes right to your gut.
For sure. 30% despite family mealtime being hugely beneficial, only about 30% of families manage to eat together regularly. But here's some reasons you might want to start doing it. Adolescents who eat meals with their family are less likely to use alcohol, drugs, and run away. 65% of people that say having the family meals together, it makes their family closer. And this is very important. Studies have found a positive association between frequent family meals and increased self-esteem. That means looking your kid in the eyes, feeding them good food, talking to them. The payout of that is, for a lifetime. And so with that being said, Leah, I know you're the owner of Eat Marketplace, right? They're in Southern California. Is that correct?
Southern California, yeah.
Temecula. Okay, my husband actually signed up this was about 6-7 years ago. He signed up for some Ironman race, and we rented a house with a bunch of friends in Temecula, and we went out there. Long story, he trained for it. He did an Ironman. I think it was like 2 months before the date. And once he did it at home to like see how good his training went, he goes, oh my God, I don't need to do that for a while. So we go to Temecula. Yes, we go to Temecula, and I'm like, Seth, we're only there one time. We need to go to wine country. We don't need to be focused on this race. And so anyway, we wound up at Eat Marketplace.
You
I was
did?
like, I was like, this is my kind of place. Tell me about that.
When were you? I'm so bummed that I missed you.
I've been a few times.
Anybody who comes through for races, I usually meet them because I try to be there pre-trained, like for that week, because there's so many cool humans that come through, and I love to connect.
I'll let you know next time I come, because I actually got married in Sonoma, so I've been a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm sorry, what was your question around Eat?
I guess for everyone listening, they're like, what is Eat Marketplace? Give them a little brief overview.
So extraordinary artisan table. And it literally means that even though we're so ordinary as chefs, and what we get to do is a privilege for you, but extraordinary artisans. So it's extraordinary people who come together to create food for you, so I can bring you to the table. I have spent most of my life working to gather people together, and it didn't hit me until the last few years that I realized that every step of my life, from my studies abroad to my work in the film industry, and to now, everything I was doing, I was just trying to get people to sit down with one another, to have conversations, and to reconnect and to find joy, because we are so robbed of joy, right? And it is this beautiful connection for us. Joy creates and heals your microbiome. Your gut-brain connection all of a sudden is lit up. And if you do have any kind of brain fog, it helps eliminate that. Conversations with people you don't know, people you know, any little bit of kindness, that is what EAT stands for to me. And when you walk into that place, I want to know that you feel like you're almost in my home kitchen. And that's what EAT is. And we're 15 years old, and we're not 15 years old because we make millions of dollars a year. We're 15 years old because people feel safe and they feel loved when they come in to eat. And that doesn't mean that I've always done that right. It took me a while to get on my own mission and to get off my high horse of being a chef. But that is everything EAT means to me.
Okay. So you're running that, and what else are you doing? Because I see you got a whole lot going on.
I do. I'm running this race to the end to get people healthy. So I also teach culinary for job placement, and MSJC, which is Mount San Jacinto College here in Temecula, allowed me to bring in regenerative farming and health and wellness as a conversation as part of this. So I teach 2 semesters, 101 and 102. And it's wonderful to do because I bring in soil scientists, I bring in specialists in their field, doctors that actually get health and wellness. And then we just opened in Pasadena a cafe that is farm to donut. And we like to say, what's in your cup when it comes to coffee, a really beautiful organic specialty roast coffee. And all that's done with a lot of joy.
That's awesome. I'm looking and I see that it looks like you were doing some culinary class prepared by Perennial Pastures. I found them at a farmer's market in La Jolla. They're all so wonderful.
I'm lucky that I know most all of my farmers in my region and many in Southern California. And I have 20-year working relationships with them. And I, first and foremost, and I don't care if it's more expensive because I need to know what's going, into your body when you're eating my food. We bring in farm food first. And that is a little bit more expensive, but I love to do that. And then we fill in from there. So Perennial was part of that.
Okay, great. They're great. They were on my podcast a few months ago. How exactly do you personally go out to eat since you are so aware of food? I know, great question. And you're so aware of food and you care so much about where it comes from and yada, yada. Like that's the way it should be. But really in the world we live in today where we're faced up against, what which I describe as poison, but it is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not natural. It's actually opposite of natural, but it is common, right? It's, you see more of that than you do of real foods and good farmers and good oils. And so how do you solve that problem? Do you go out to eat?
I don't even know how much we want to talk about that, because I really don't go out to eat because I know too much. I've been in too many kitchens, and I've gotten to the point at 56 years old and having my own health struggles. I am so careful about what I put into my body, and I have no desire to wreck that even once. I've tried, and I've gone out, and then I just have horrible joint pain the next day and inflammation. And so if I do go out, between you and I am really studying and understanding the places I'm going to. And I sometimes have to know the chefs. So I even hate to say that, because to me, honestly, Jen, it sounds so white elitist. Like we actually, oh, puppy.
I know. We got a little puppy.
Such a baby.
She's 3 months old.
Oh my gosh, she's adorable. Mine's upstairs, angry that I put her upstairs, but she's a poodle. Or is that a mix?
This is a Bernese mountain dog and a poodle. So it's a Bernie doodle.
My niece is just started breeding them in a very holistic, beautiful, gentle way. She's in she's above
wish I would have known.
No, she's just starting. She's just starting. Oh my gosh, you are adorable.
Thank you. Oh, she's like, thank you. Her name is B.
Hi, B.
Like Miss B.
That's awesome.
She's great. They make like standard size, medium, mini, and this one is a micro. So she only gets to like 17 pounds.
That's what Josie's doing. So in the future, I'll let you know.
Yes, I love that. Never even heard of holistic breeding, but I'm into it.
Well, she's just so cares about dogs. She doesn't like what's been done with breeders. So she has it's taken her freaking 10 years to get this started, because she cares so deeply about how she's doing it. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Let me know when she does that. I'd love to reach out to her. So you don't really go out to eat. I don't either. I have while we're talking about it, I want to give people some tips, but I always say, you can ask them what kind of oils they're using. It's likely a seed oil. Ask them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Ask for things cooked in butter over seed oil. That's going to help you. You could also take some type of charcoal pill before that'll help bind, those things and get it out of you. You could definitely bring your own wine, your organic and no added sulfites wine. That's going to help you. And then I tell people to often look at their sides. So you'll see vegetables, or you'll see potatoes, sweet potatoes. Ask for those things instead of, the pasta it comes with or something like that. Yeah.
And it is. And I always, I do tell, my students that, like, cause they're afraid to ask. I'm like, don't be afraid to ask. You're the one spending the dollars. And just be gentle about it, and be kind. You're not there to shame them. They're not there to shame you. They're in business. They think they know what they're doing, and it's remembering that a lot of restaurateurs out there are the same as a lot of us. Like they're on their growing journey too. To understand food better. I would definitely say, if you can, stay away from big corporate chains, because there's just not a lot of good in food there. Stick to more of your mom and pop restaurants that have a good reputation, but definitely ask them, what are the oils you use? And, do you have any, local food on your menu? We're just curious. There's gentle conversations. You'd be surprised how many local small restaurants do go to the farmer's market, because at the end of the farmer's market, a lot of those farmers want to really not go home back to the farm with all that food. So those farmers have it'll be half off. So I see a lot of fellow restaurateurs out at the end of the market just getting the rest of the potatoes, tomatoes, and all of that.
Another great solution. There's an app called Seed Oil Scout. They were on my podcast many, many months ago, maybe a year ago.
I gotta write that down.
Yep. Seed Oil Scout. They're pretty cool. Whatever city you go to, you can look on the app and it'll show you everywhere that doesn't use seed oils, what's using beef tallow, what's using extra virgin olive oil, what's using ghee, grass-fed butter, all those things. So they're building that thing up as well. That's That's an easy one. And I'm getting ready to have somebody come on my podcast, the creators of a seed oil free certification sticker. So
Wow.
you know how you have stickers that say organic, non-GMO, gluten-free. They're actually creating this certification so products can send them their product and they'll certify that it does not have seed oils. That way, when you go grocery shopping, that'll be another way to kind of eliminate inflammatory foods. With that being said, Leah, do you have anything that I missed that you want to leave the audience with?
To me, it always comes down to find as much joy as you can in your life and spend as much time as you can with people who will lift you up and who love you unconditionally.
Hopefully this podcast did that for some people today. They're like, you know what? My doctor isn't talking to me about these things. My employer is not talking to me about these things. My family's not even talking to me about these things. Thank you, Jen and Leah. I appreciate it. All right, Leah. You've been amazing. I'm going to link Eat Marketplace, all your links beneath the podcast. And I enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully it helps someone today, tomorrow, the next day, and all the days of their lives. Thank you.
Amen to that. And thank you for having me on. What a privilege.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wake Up and Read the Labels. If you like this episode, guess what? We want you to share it. We'd love that. Share it with a friend and leave us a review. You can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or really wherever you're listening to your podcast. For more information, visit us at wakeupandreadthelabels.com.